Hey, this is Congressman Shri Thanedar. I am
fired! Get out of there! You're fired! Make America great again! So it looks like more of our favorite grandstanding, ridiculous, straight out of a Looney Tunes cartoon Democrat congressman may not be long for Washington, D.C. because while the Democrat establishment, let's be honest, got kind of lucky with the whole Graham Plattner thing, it is still absolutely the case that the young communist radicals are coming for them and largely across the country succeeding in toppling those very characters. And as per CNN today, we do seem to also have strong evidence that one Congressman Shri Thanedar, remember this guy, the one with the accent who can barely speak English, he has that horrible toupee, and he tried to impeach Trump about 5 different times, likewise is on track to lose his primary. And let's keep counting there because this has been a bunch of them. Nancy Pelosi basically saw the writing on the wall. She dipped out. Al Green, the crazy guy with the cane who interrupts the State of the Union every single year, likewise lost his primary. Shri Thanedar, a lot of others that I can't think about. The political career of Andrew Cuomo ending. There's many different stories from this election cycle that we can cover, but it still boils all the way back to one fundamental central theme. The Democrats bred this radicalism for many years, as we've brought up several times. They have encouraged their voters to be crazy because, hey, look, if Antifa's rioting on college campuses or targeting Trump supporters or assassinating conservatives or impeding ICE operations, those things are politically expedient for us. But suddenly then came the Palestine movement. Now comes this whole rabid Mamdani socialist theory that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are not fighting Trump hard enough. And now here we have it to where whatever attempts maybe existed in the past to keep the Democrat Party semi-sane, that's all dissipated. This is officially fully the party of crazy, and that appears to be what's 100% happening. And what I've been really curious to watch is how this is going to impact 2028. Because the Democrat establishment and many seem to just believe that Gavin Newsom is a shoo-in. There are no other serious candidates. But let's be honest, if you're Gavin Newsom watching this right now, you clearly have to be nervous. I mean, I actually thought at the time, that's why, for example, Newsom completely did a pivot on the whole wealth tax concept and is talking a lot more socialistic as of late, right? Because this is where all of that stuff is headed. And while it is easier to beat in the election, this is overall bad midterm news for the Democrats. It's also sort of adding, I think, to our sense of urgency as well, which is to say we have to beat these people even more than we did before because they really are that dangerous. And no, you cannot rely on the sleepy, idiotic, stupid Democrat establishment to stop the communists for us. That's going to be our job in the general election. Let's talk about all of it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, how bad is it currently looking for many members of the current Democrat caucus over in Congress? Not from general elections, but from primaries. We'll take a listen.
You look at the number of Democratic incumbents, House incumbents who have gone down to defeat, it's actually higher in the House than it was back in 2010. House incumbents who lost primaries for Republicans back in 2010, it was 1, 2. You can count it on one hand. But in 2026 so far, it's already 5. So if you look at the Kalshi prediction market and the chance that 6 House Democrats go down to defeat, lose their primary in 2026, this number has consistently, over the last week or so, been hovering 80, 90%. And when we talk about history books, the history books, right? If, in fact, 6 House Democrats went down to defeat in 2026, it would be by far, it would be the largest number in a post-redistricting cycle for Democrats. And get this, over 50 years. I mean, there are a number of races where they might be in trouble. How about Missouri 1, right? There's a possibility. How about a Michigan 13? That's a real possibility in terms of a House Democrat going down to defeat. And then in Connecticut 1 as well, another real possibility. And this is just what we've been seeing over and over and over again. We have been seeing that these incumbents have been going down to defeat, and it looks like there are going to be plenty more.
And now, I'm going to be honest, a huge part of me is pretty sad that people like Al Green and Shri Thanedar will be leaving because they were just such characters. such great entertainment material. You know, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do with the Mr. Can't Speak English trying to impeach Trump and failing every single time? Actually, I'm more fearful now because if Democrats win the House, you know they're going to launch a serious impeachment and Shri Thanadar's not going to be there to be the spokesperson, right? It's going to be someone who can actually speak English. So that's not good for us. But in all seriousness, you know, the writing is on the wall clearly. And this is part of why maybe I might sit there and say, perhaps this time might be different with the Democrat civil war between the progressive, crazy communists and the establishment. Because don't get me wrong, we've seen this exact scene before, right? This happened in 2018, for example, where the Bernie Sanders wave hit some of Congress, and that's how we got the election, if you remember, of people like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and others. But to a large extent, while the Democrat Party absorbed them into their ranks and has definitely became more insane, the leadership, like Hakeem, like Chuck Schumer, like Pelosi at the time, basically managed to fend off the revolution. And like we see every single time, by the way, it was typically the case that Bernie and the other progressives would basically just sit there and take it, right? They let the establishment screw them over, bully them. Nothing would change every single time. The reason why I think this might be different, and maybe this is something even bigger potentially than the Tea Party on the Republican side in the 2010s, is because of the fact you can clearly see the Democrat establishment is losing control. They no longer have the ability, for the most part, sure, you can get lucky with a Graham Plattner, but for the most part, to rig primaries effectively against the communist upstarts anymore. And by the way, you certainly have seen as well that the left-wing base has just gotten genuinely more crazy, right? They've become more radical over the years. This stuff is growing. And it kind of feels right now they have this tidal wave of momentum that cannot be stopped. What I would compare it to is basically like an untreated disease, or in this case, perhaps more particularly, an untreated mental illness, which is literally what this is, and allow me to explain, as we've said a couple of times now. Again, the Democrats encourage this stuff from their voter base because it was at the time politically expedient. So they cheer on Antifa. They'll defend Antifa by saying it's not real. It's just an idea. These are just Americans who are against fascism. They cheered on the mass violence of BLM. They cheered on the violent protesters against ICE, all of this stuff, right? But of course, what happened is that those far left crazy radicals who, yes, in many cases are literally mentally ill, so we're not exaggerating that. This is a very important comparison, right? They let them into the ranks. They coddled them. They cheered them on. They kept saying more, 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 kept on encouraging it. Well, of course, what happens when you do not treat mental illness or any form of disease or medical condition, right? It just gets worse. It spirals. That schizophrenic person goes more and more insane because nobody's helping them, which is basically what the Democrats did. Think about that deeply for a moment. Democrats literally built this coalition, as you can see at your average No Kings protest, right? They built a coalition of the mentally ill and genuinely insane, like stuff is wrong with these people, and never expected that might turn on them, right? They thought they could control the crazy. Now you can't, because it started with Palestine. That was a big thing. Remember, some leftists did indeed boycott Biden. Who knows what impact that had in 2024, but that kind of did take place. And now this right here, where you, as the leader of the revolution, as so many revolutionary leaders, by the way, from France and others have done in the past, sat there, and now you're in front of the mob. You're in front of the disease you created, and you're shocked that it's now consuming you as well. That is effectively here what is going on. So do we exactly feel bad for the Democrats? No. Again, they willingly, literally exploited a bunch of mentally ill people, took advantage of it, and now that the mental illness has gone untreated, they're shocked that, these people are crazy and can't be controlled. At the same time, look, while it may make the Democrat Party a little bit less electable in swing districts, it also makes it a lot more dangerous, right? These are the stakes we need to understand, which is, in all of these cases, you're not particularly going to get a candidate more moderate. This is a primary from the left. This is a radical attack, which means if we don't stop these people, that is the communist takeover of the United States. I mean, 100% hook, line, and sinker. And by the way, as I've been hinting at many times, I wouldn't be surprised at this rate, just given the political momentum they have, how much this might go down to affect, let's say, the 2028 Democrat primary. Because you may remember back in 24, there was a lot of conversation, this sort of fake performative self-reflection that was taking place at the time, only lasted about 2 months, but you may remember all the talk about how the Democrat Party needs to reform itself. Maybe we should stop being woke. Maybe we should stop being genuinely insane and violent and crazy on all these different issues. Well, here's why that's never going to work. And here's why, by the way, I think even if, let's say, Democrats win 2028, Trump is gone, is this the opportunity for maybe Gavin Newsom, who deep down probably thinks that the leftists are crazy because he's a complete sociopath who just wants power, right? But could that be the opportunity for him to steer the Democrats back into like a Bill Clinton style direction? Could he be the Bill Clinton who basically tries to reform the party and says, we're going to stop being as crazy? Well, let me explain to you. That's never going to happen. And that's never going to happen for this specific reason, right? As you can see, the Democrat voter base is so insane, so radical, so mentally ill that in order to win the 2028 primary, you're going to have to go through these people, which I think in general probably spells bad news for Newsom because, again, he, regardless of the fact that he governs in many ways California like a radical, crazy progressive, is still seen as the establishment darling, and there is some truth to that, right? That's who the establishment wants. So if it's the case that the establishment darlings keep losing, might spell bad news for Gavin Newsom. But here's the thing. Even if he wins, think about the cost of this, right? For him to win this primary with this insane voter base, he is going to have to make himself extremely radical. He's going to have to basically adopt the Mamdani, Graham Plattner, AOC political ideology, which likewise also means, right? It's an inevitable thing. You're going to get a radical president. And if he ever even tries to have a sister soldier moment, think about, like, could a Democrat even get away with that today? Do you ever see a sister soldier moment from Democrat politicians? No. Because at the time, Bill Clinton, let's say, was pushing back on maybe 5% of the left-wing base, not 95%, right? So that's never going to fly. That's not going to happen. That's, by the way, why you will never see ever Democrats condemn the extremism or the growing tide or just the outright even violence coming from their own ranks. As a matter of fact, they sit there and defend it. That is exactly the reason why. So again, another reason why we have to beat these people. Their voters are steering them to be even more insane. There is no healing to be had. Remember talking about healing and unity? Remember when that was a thing? It's a dream, right? It's not going to happen. It's not backed up by reality. You see that these people are crazy, and hopefully now we simply understand the political project of conservatives first and foremost must be to win, right? That is what is most important. That is something, by the way, that Charlie, unlike a lot of his critics on the right wing, actually understood. That's why he built Turning Point Action. That's why he dedicated so much, for example, to the 2024 election, in contrast to what a lot of his critics did or did not do, right? Because he understood the stakes, right? He understood that not only in politics is it necessary first and foremost to win, to defeat the opponent, because you cannot even enact your principles. You cannot even enact your vision for the country. Your principles alone don't mean anything. You can sit there and virtue signal. You can call leftists hypocrites all you want. But when they're like barreling down your neck, when they're just like doing everything and you're doing nothing, you're losing, right? You must first of all take power to enact your principles. But also, if that to you is confusing, if you like don't understand the stakes of winning or why that's so important or why maybe even old school 2003 GOP norms need to be thrown out in order to make sure we just beat these people and make sure they do not win and take power, well, look no further than this right here, right? Like the consequence of losing an election is no longer just about, like it was in, let's say, the 2000s. Okay, you won, we lost, we're all Americans, want to go have a drink, don't even care who you really voted for, right? I wish we still lived in that country, I really do. Truth be told, though, it's not like that anymore, right? In many ways, like these are issues of life or death for the country. And as we may have seen on a certain September 10th, like life and death for people as well, right? So just something to think about there. And by the way, don't forget that, much like is happening right now in France with Marine Le Pen, Donald Trump would literally be in jail right now if he had lost the 2024 election. And frankly, so would a lot of people on our side. So just remember the stakes. That's why it's more important than ever to beat these people and stop the radical communists. What else can we say? Anyways, that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Until next time, God bless and peace.